I'm Catherine Sasanov, and I want to thank Gloria and Mindock so much and give congratulations on yet another anniversary of Cervena Barva Press. She published in 2004 my chapbook, Terra, and about a year after that, it found a home for all of the poems. But I want to thank Gloria for betting on this horse before anyone else did. So the poem I'm going to read comes out of my discovery in 2005 that my family held slaves in the Missouri Ozarks. My third great grandfather was enslaving 9 people there. And I spent about 5 years researching those people's lives. And while I wrote up some genealogies of those people, the emotional part of it went into what became my book of poems, Had Slaves, of which Terra was the first iteration of it. So this poem is called His Personal Property, Inventory and Appraisal Sheet, 1860. And it's in memory of Henry Henderson, Flora, Eliza, Easter, Ben, Alex, George, and Edmund. At the tail end of Beasts of Burden, just before the household goods, group shot of what $6,000 looks like. 2 children, 3 women, 4 grown men. The holiday not quite right in the head. 3-year-old Will to a 10-year-old boy. A man who gets to be mulatto once, but never will again. The information comes down white. So a 4-year-old is clearing land, raising up the master's house. The information comes down white. So my cousin rides the holy day, mistaken for a horse. Did emancipation swallow you? Did you walk out into a choice of surnames never to be found? Dug out of a probate file, buried in a drawer. My family stands around your paper grave, pretending that it's dirt. Owned by the blood that owned you once. What right do I have to track you down?
I'm going to read from my book, Triage. And this poem is called Late Nursery Rhyme. The stars have fallen from their glade, and deep in the long grass lie winking in the shade. Come with me to gather them, some dark, some diamond. When we are done, climb and wind this string of beads through limbs and golden leaves. And who can say when the last star has faded out what these strange garlands are that once were light and now are char? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Anna Warrock, and I'm very glad to be celebrating Červená Barva's 20th anniversary and the good, solid support and work of Gloria in bringing poetry from around the world to the world. This poem was published in Passage. Missed the Bus. As I watch the bus jerk down Highland, I wonder if I had boarded, could I have left my grief behind? Joined the strangers all gone shopping. My grief bags up this moment of a thing missed. Faking casual, it shuffles ahead, fits its foot into a nameless wet shoe print on the cement, dips low over leaves and mud, inhales the rotted coffee odor of dirt, that cemetery smell I recognize from only a week ago. My grief nods, opens the bag, as it hears my beloved's voice saying again, she's going to miss me. As standing on any sidewalk, I miss her, a place I cannot leave. Thank you.
Oh, I'm Roberta Allen. This is a piece from New World Writing. The nurse, we don't know why. The nurse seemed like other nurses working in a large urban hospital, but she wasn't. We don't know why she traveled to countries with lousy sanitation, polluted water, and too many people. She never protected herself against life-threatening diseases, so when she got sick, no one was surprised. She had to catch something, didn't she? But she was lucky her sickness was mild. Maybe the owner of the guest house in a dirty little backwater with a tiny beach filled with plastic caught the sickness from the nurse who had recently visited the island. Like the nurse, he didn't worry about catching contagious diseases. Like the nurse, his sickness was mild. We don't know why. We don't know whether any of the villagers had it. They were poor but laughed easily. They seemed so much happier than the guest house owner and his wife, foreigners there who spoke with heavy accents. We don't know why the nurse recommended the guest house to the teacher she barely knew. The teacher was not adventurous, but she did act on impulse from time to time. Why the nurse told her she had hurt her Achilles heel bicycling across the world's 7th largest country is a mystery. Or why she told her about the time she had fallen off a woven bridge and hurt her back in a remote rainforest and had to be airlifted to the nearest continent. The arrival of the teacher annoyed the guest house owner, interrupting his game of chess. His chess partner didn't even look up when the owner showed her a doll-sized room. The window was held open by a stick. The next boat to the mainland, sorry, I have laryngitis. The next boat to the mainland wasn't due for 3 days. So the teacher poked around the village. She thought about the owner and his wife. Maybe he felt constrained in his own country. Maybe he thought he'd find his freedom here. But his wife? The wife spent her days in a civilized town on another island, an hour away by boat. It had 2 hotels and 3 restaurants. The wife wore little print dresses and heels. We have no idea what she did there. She never offered to drive the teacher to the next village, so she too could take the boat to the civilized town. But maybe the teacher was okay with that. Maybe she didn't want to see another island. Maybe she just wanted to go home. The nurse got sick again, this time so sick she moved in with her mother. When she was well enough, she built a house in a village of expats on a mountaintop in a country as far removed from the sickness as possible, though no place was safe. By chance, the teacher who had recovered from a bout of her own ran into her while traveling. What an amazing coincidence, she thought. The teacher had told herself that if she ever saw her again, which of course she never expected, she would ask about the guest house couple. But by then she had completely forgotten about the couple and the island where they lived. She had even forgotten about the nurse. Many things had happened in her life since then, including a brief marriage and divorce. Thank you.
I'm delighted to share a poem in celebration of Cervena Barva's 20th year anniversary. And so I'm going to read a poem called In Search of Benevolent Immortality from my collection Life in Suspension. and it starts with an epigraph by Mary Oliver. Someone I loved once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to understand that this too was a gift. In search of benevolent immortality. My mother sacrificed so much. I tried to mend fractured relations, let light flicker into the sheltered past. We packed whole lives into bundles in search of what chooses us, what wants to come back to the surface, what needs to be said. We had so many dreams. We didn't know what to make of them. And so, with leopard's ears, I hear beyond the range of sound, the ineffable, the sublime, my mother's breath, grandmother's smile, ancestors' voices, to soothe and heal the sorrow. I'll share the book. It's from Life in Suspension. And here it is. Oh no. And it's published by Salmon Poetry. Thank you.
Hi, Corey Mesler here, and I'm going to start with a reading from my Cervena Barva novel called The Adventures of Camel Jeremy Eros, which was published in 2020. And I'm just going to read a short intro to the book. You don't know me without you have read a book by the name of We Are Billion-Year-Old Carbon, but that ain't no matter. That book was made by Mr. Creole Myers, and he told the truth, mainly. There was things he stretched, but mainly he told the truth. That is nothing. Thus, Camel Jeremy Eros, Memphis metrist, bard of the bluffs, began his autobiography. He never went further for reasons unknown. The spiral notebook with those words was found among his personal effects after Mr. Eros' death. The tale is here told, gathered from other sources. The interpretation of incidents recollected and revived can be here judged, though it will produce nothing more solid than the interpretation of dreams, as Dr. F. knows. We go on. Camel Jeremy Eros, Memphis poet, provocateur, hieromonk, and bon vivant, who once upon a ghost-drenched highway gave a ride to Jack Kerouac, maybe, who once faced down the ghastly ghoul of the banana-purveying Piggly Wiggly, who once became involved with some motion picture wizards, which may have cost him his life, who once was part of a nefarious plot to explode the Doughboy statue in Overton Park in protest against the Vietnam, war, who was once known as the rector of the Boo Enema, who once boarded a celestial microbus with compatriot Richard Brodigan, ganja-enlivened sights set upon the garden being, as it were, rebuilt on Farmer Yasgur's land in upstate New Mesopotamia. These tales, myths, home truths, and mendacities are part of extant texts, both exoteric and inscrutable. We must go back and begin again. I read two very short poems from my forthcoming book from Cervena Barva. The first one is called I Spoke to the Birds. I spoke to the birds huddled in the dogwood, waiting for the seed I bring every morning. I told them we are all in this together, bird, man, tree, and God. And then in keeping with the theme from the novel, one short poem called Cat Poem. Richard Brodigan awoke in a house he shared with Jefferson Airplane. There was a poem curled like an orange cat on his stomach. Richard Brodigan lay as still as he could, and the poem stretched and went back to sleep. Later at dinner with the airplane, someone told a story about an orange cat that died in the house, and Richard said, "It's not dead. It turned into a poem." Thank you. And thanks for inviting me, boss.
From Elegiac Footnotes to Rilke's Duino Elegies. And it really relates to the third elegy. Eines ist die Geliebte zu singen. One thing is to sing the beloved. Sweetheart, lover, creature of the day and creature of the night. The self, separate standing, is an upended capital I. In love we attach, we receive light, a single facade, thing front, overlapping. She was spinning her mixer, folding into the batter as is the rule, dry into wet, her whole life revolving. Flour into beaten eggs and milk, sand into ocean, dirt into rain barrels. Her dreams of him went underground. He brought her in by one door, the bed in the deep cellar, led her all through the house where no one would see, and later took her out a different way. We invent angels because no one knows how to speak to God. And whether they are men or women, girls, menarche, whether they are arhats, they brush against surfaces, ruffling them like wind. They are breathless, as if in flight. Do they wait for us? Lord, I'd have one say, thank you for letting me walk with my eyes open, lids not drawn, as in the last dream, where the sun is shuttered, and I try to rise and rise helpless, holding my eyeglasses before me, empty frames catching on someone's fingers. Family portrait. I heard the picture snap without me. The thread is a link to the past, Minos tells Theseus. Hold on to it. It will take you back to yourself. A house, though, needs walls. They set boundaries, unlike the labyrinth, whose purpose is to keep changing the rules. When I was a child, rat poison was blue, so people wouldn't eat it. Laundry starch, too, though that was for brightness. Once Shiva drank the world poison to save the gods and demons, then spit out blue ocean. The castle, thick-walled, where stones fuse, slit for a view. Quiet and cool. Rilke's chair is heavy as a throne. There will be morning walks on exaggerated paths through a brimful garden. Who else can make the invisible visible, connect to eternity, air and earth, human breath and longing? A camp in the woods, the delicate herringbone pattern of pine needles. Summer is only a delaying tactic. Roses will bloom for anyone. Anyhow, it's always winter here, despite the leaving trees. See the bare branches, the gashed mirror of ponds. Tonight, first frost, and all the roses are facing front. This is the book. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. That was beautiful. I'm going to read from Sister Mary Butkus. Thanks, Gloria. She did this in 2007. I did 1 to 10 in Catholic schools, and Sister Mary Butkus was a name for one of the nuns that we had. In this section, this poem is called Stained. My baby sister Sarah smiled in the shadow of the cross, gurgled under Father's holy fingers, until a splash of baptism made her cry. We circled the font, 3 generations of apostles, and the stained glass windows filled with iridescent angels. But Sarah never understood the Immaculate Conception. Virginity wasn't one of her prayers. She'd skip Mass, sneak a cigarette, straddle a trash can, bribe my silence with tears. Last month during spring break, she called from a phone booth, met me, and collapsed in my arms, begging me not to tell. That morning they scraped her clean like a grapefruit half. No one was there for me, she whispered. I hate myself. A week ago, the science project mouse birthed 5 naked pinkies, then disappeared. She squeezed her shrunken womb through the cage, found the open door. I knew they wouldn't live, but the students poised the eyedropper of milk above each searching mouth. I flushed the squirming bodies that morning before first hour prayers. All day a fist tightened up into my throat. Sarah wasn't home when I called. She stays out late after work with the wrong people, avoids our parents, will never forgive me for my words, how I held her with the cold hands of the church. I couldn't sleep, and when I heard my new son cry, I nudged my wife awake to comfort him. I should have remembered Mary Magdalene. I should have wiped her cheeks, dried them with her hair. Thank you.
I'm reading from a book called The Chintz Age, which is about writers and artists struggling to get by in a rapidly gentrifying society that seemingly has no use for them. And the story I'm going to read is called West Side Hotel, or I'm going to read a short excerpt. And it's about a man working in an old SRO hotel on the west side of Manhattan. He gets involved in the underworld and goes for the payoff and finds that he's in over his head. So it's kind of got a noir structure, which makes it unique among the stories in this book. But anyway, I'll read from it. It seems now like it was almost my first day, though I know I'd been there for nearly 2 weeks, when the manager came into the office and grimly ordered me to come with him. A portly man in his 50s with a long scar on his forehead disappearing into sparse brown hair. Clifford Philpott had worked at the hotel all his life, eventually ascending to the post of manager, which may have had something to do with the fact that his family owned a hotel. As I followed him up the stairs, his limp became more pronounced, the lingering result, along with the scar, of a severe beating at the hands of a crack addict several years back. When we got to the room, the super was standing there with his drill plugged into the wall socket, so I knew something major was up. And on Philpott's orders, he began to drill through the lock on the door, the lacerating steel corkscrewing from the hole in spirals. When he finished, I shouldered the door open, breaking the flimsy chain lock, so I was first into the room. I'd never even seen a dead body before, and it totally freaked me out. To top it off, this guy had been dead for a couple of days. He was blue and he stank. Holy shit, I said. Oh my God, and various other unhelpful things. Philpott entered after me and went right up to the body, telling me quite calmly to close the door. I looked over my shoulder and a crowd of whispering maids had gathered outside behind the super. Nervously, I blurted out, "We have to call the police." "Yeah, we'll call the police," Philpott agreed. "That's exactly what we're going to do. Now close the door for a minute and don't let anybody in." I was frozen in place. "Shit," Philpott said. He brushed past me in the narrow room, told the maids brusquely to get back to work, closed the door himself, and stood with his back to the broken door, holding it shut. "You'll see worse than this," he said. The dead man was lying curled up on his side on the stained beige carpet, his face turned half to the floor and frozen in a ghastly rictus, his eyes open and fixed upon the floor. "Reach in his pocket and get his wallet." "What?" Philpott repeated his order. "Do I have to do everything myself?" "No way," I shook my head. It was the idea of touching the corpse as much as stealing from the dead. I took a step back. Philpott pulled a chair against the door. "Get out of the way," he said. He reached into the man's pocket, took out the bills from the wallet and fanned through them, then placed the wallet on the dresser. The dead man was in his late 70s, emaciated, with sparse, longish, snow-white hair. A jazz pianist, I learned later. He'd lived at the West Side for decades. I finally noticed the upright piano against the wall, buried beneath a clutter of record albums, sheet music, and cardboard boxes, and looking, sadly, like it hadn't been played in ages. He owed me 2 weeks' rent, Philpott explained as he tucked the bills in his pants pocket. This is the only way I'll get my money. So the chintz age,